our food rescue team here at the SLO Food Bank. So take it away, Dre.
Awesome. Thank you, Susie. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'm so excited to be with everybody and talking about what we do for food rescue at the SLO Food Bank. My name is Andrea Richards, also known as Dre around the food bank. Feel free to call me Dre. I'm the food rescue manager. I've been with the food bank since 2020. I started as an AmeriCorps volunteer, and I've been in the food rescue position for a little over a year now, since 2022 in February. And I recently brought on our new food rescue coordinator, Becky, and happy to have her with us today. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Becky.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Hi, everyone. And thanks so much for being here. We have a lot of really fun information and hopefully super useful information to share with you today. Like Dre said, I'm new to the SLO Food Bank. Really excited to be part of its mission and its work. A little bit about me is that I moved to the Central Coast 20 years ago. Been here ever since with my husband and two kiddos. For the past 12 years, I owned and operated a small business that provided services to children with autism and to their families and connected them to resources in our county. And so far, my favorite part of working here at the food bank is to continue to be connected to members of our community, people like you, doing great work here in SLO County. So that's your food rescue team. If you want to take us to the next slide, Dre, let's talk about food rescue. Um, when we say food rescue, we mean the collection and redistribution of food that would have otherwise gone to waste from farms, markets, grocery stores, and other entities or businesses that generate edible food. Some examples of food rescue at the food bank include grocery rescue, rescue of prepared food, and gleaning. Um, you might hear us say several times throughout this presentation, refer to donors. And so we want to define that for you, just so you know exactly who we're talking about. And that's a person, business, or an entity which donates. So we're talking about farmers, grocery stores, school cafeterias, etc. In the next slide, we're going to give you a little bit of background on our food rescue efforts. The SLO Food Bank started documenting agency partner rescue efforts back in 2016 and did so for a number of reasons to obtain a big picture perspective on rescue in our county, to create a formal system for food rescue in the hopes of increasing participation and to grow this great program. To document our progress, which is just feels good, but also helps to gain support in our wider community. And lastly, to ensure the safe handling of rescued food. There are two food rescue programs of the SLO Food Bank. Glean Slow, which organizes volunteers to harvest produce in our community. And last year, more than 300,000 pounds of produce was rescued from local farms, orchards, and residences here in our county. The second SLO Food Bank program is Agency Direct Rescue, the program that you participate in, where nonprofits rescue donated food from local grocery stores to distribute to our neighbors. And you'll see in that little graphic that more than 1.2 million pounds of food went out through our Hunger Relief Network and the SLO Food Bank last year. Um, let's look at the next slide, which is an overview of the process of grocery rescue at the SLO Food Bank. These graphics represent the topics that we're going to be digging into in this webinar. We're going to go into greater detail on each of these points. So let's start with the SLO Food Bank. We're a coordinating entity for food rescue in our county, and we work with agency partners to rescue food through this process that's illustrated here. The first step in the process is match. Agency partners that participate in SLO Food Bank's grocery rescue program are paired with local food donors that are a match, and we'll explain the criteria that we use to match you with local donors that'll be a good fit for you in just a little bit. Second step in the process is collect. We work with you to create and set pickup schedules of donated food. Typically, schedules are set for a specific day of the week, for a specific donor, for grocery store, but they vary based on the individual characteristics of each agency, partner, and donor. But the bottom line is that we work with you to create a schedule that works for you. Once you have that schedule for pickups created, we're looking at transport, where you transport the donations that you pick up to your pantry or distribution site using methods that ensure food safety. We're going to look more into sorting and weighing in this webinar. Once those donations are back at your site, they're sorted by category, weighed, and stored at your site or immediately distributed. Number 5, distribute is the heart of what you do. Distribute the donations of food to your clients through your pantries and meal programs. And the last step in this process is reporting, where you take the documented weights of the donated food that you've rescued and submit these weights to the SLO Food Bank through our inventory software, Primarius. So again, we're going to explain in more depth each of these steps in this process, and I'm going to hand it back over to Dre to start with number 1, match.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky. So we start off, as Becky had mentioned, with matching our agency partners with local donors for rescue. So when an agency partner reaches out to us to say that they're interested in starting food rescue, we will start off with a rescue capacity site visit to see what kind of capacity an agency has and what sort of equipment they might need to start rescue. So we're going to be looking at things like dry storage, space in refrigeration and freezer space to see what's currently being utilized and what you have more space for to accommodate rescue. And then we'll also look at the equipment that you have. So we have what we like to call kind of a grocery rescue starter kit list. This entails refrigeration and freezer space, as well as a scale to weigh and report on the food that's rescued, and then some equipment to help ensure safety, like thermal blankets, portable coolers, and temperature guns and things like that. So what we'll do is look at this list and establish what you already have and what you might need to begin rescue. There are times when the SLO Food Bank is able to assist with procuring this equipment, depending on grants that are currently available and depending on funding. So if that is a possibility, we will certainly talk with you about that at that time. And once we have an idea of what you're going to need for rescue and those the basic equipment is procured, we will start looking for a local donor. Actually, we'll put you on a list to keep an eye out for opportunities with local donors. And then when we get word that there is an opportunity available, Becky will put together an email that includes what we call a typical donation profile to give you an idea of what that donor usually tends to donate and see if the food that they have is something that would be helpful for your organization. We also look at things like pickup schedules and the amount of food that they're donating, just to be sure that this is a good fit for your organization. And if it turns out that it will be and we want to move forward, then we will go forward with doing introductions. And this is often via email, where we will connect the agency, the contact at the agency partner with a contact at the store to be sure everybody's on the same page with phone numbers and emails, and then also be sure that we know the first day of rescue, when that's going to start, and then have the schedule established and everything. This will all be done through communications via email. And then we will, the SLO Food Bank rescue team will meet you at the store for your first rescue. This is to introduce you to the key staff at the store that you'll be working with and kind of help out with orientation. Every store does this a little bit differently, but basically, when you get to a store, which is often through the back in the receiving area, you will be looking for your point of contact, which is often somebody in the receiving area who will show you around to the different departments that have food to donate. And with that, we'll go further into the collection phase. So once we have the food that's ready to donate, you want to assess the donation before loading it into the vehicle. So there's two basic things that we want to look at when we're assessing a donation, and that is food safety and capacity. So when you're checking for food safety concerns, you want to look for anything that might indicate spoilage, torn packaging that has exposed food, or if you have a temperature gun, this is a great time to check that TCS food. TCS stands for temperature controlled for safety. Anything that needs to be kept refrigerated, we call that TCS food. So this is a great time to check that and be sure that it's within that safe window. If you find that any food hasn't been handled safely or is perhaps spoiled, this is a great time to let the donor know. We won't be able to take this. Unfortunately, it's not distributable, and leave it with them at that point for disposal. Another thing that you're looking for is your capacity to distribute this food. So if you go to a store and they're looking to donate, let's say 17 cases of milk, and there's no way that you'll be able to distribute that milk in the amount of time that it's still good. This is a capacity issue that you want to go ahead and take care of right there at the store. So if a donation is bigger than the capacity you can handle, this is a great time again to let the store know, hey, this is a little bit more than we can actually take, but please reach out to the SLO Food Bank. They can reach out to me or Becky, and we are happy to help them reallocate that donation. And so those are the two things. You want to look at food safety and consider your capacity. Once the donation has been assessed, you're ready to load it into your vehicle and bring it back to your organization. We know that oftentimes volunteers will be using their own vehicle, or sometimes the staff from our agency partners are using their own vehicle to rescue. And that's okay, but we do ask that you be sure that that vehicle is free of chemicals or any potential contaminants in the area that you're going to be storing the food rescue for transport. While you're transporting the rescued product, we have a little bit of guidance for how to ensure that we maintain safe temperatures for food that is the TCS food that you get while you're transporting the rescue. So this is a great time to use passive temperature control like thermal blankets or portable coolers to help maintain that colder temperature. We also recommend taking a direct route back to your facility from the rescue. Don't like stop by the bank on the way or make any other stops, because we want to be sure that the time window that that food is outside of the refrigerator is as small as possible. So our safety guidance says 2 hours or less that we would like that food can be out of the refrigerator and still be safe to consume. But we want to point out that that window includes the transport back to your organization, the time for sorting and weighing. This can also include the time that the food is out during the distribution and transporting back to the participant's house. So that window is going to get small pretty quick when we consider all the different times that food will be outside of a refrigerator. So all of that to say, we recommend taking a direct route back to your organization to get to the sorting and weighing process. And so you have your donation back at the facility. It's time to start sorting and weighing. So these are the 8 categories that have come from Feeding America that we sort our donated product into to report back to the food bank. And these are the same categories that the food bank reports back to Feeding America. Um, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as to why the waste category is in bold. But first, I want to share we have a document here that has guidance for sort of frequently asked questions. When you're sorting a donation, you'll probably find that you come across certain things where you're not really sure which category it should go into. Eggs, for example, was sort of a big mystery for a while. And so we sat down at the food bank and talked about it and determined eggs should go into the meat and seafood category because it's a protein. Another example is orange juice. If you look at these categories, nothing is immediately apparent where that's going to end up. Orange juice actually ended up in the prepared food section because it's been prepared for consumption. So things like that have made this frequently asked questions guidance that we share with agencies that are rescuing to help with difficult questions like that. Let me say though, when you are sorting and weighing to report, don't stress out about these categories. If you find something and you're not really sure what category it falls into, make your best guess. If you're seeing something come through that is sort of a recurring question, please reach out to the food bank. We are happy to, Becky or myself, we're happy to tell you what category that should go into. And if it needs to be added to the frequently asked questions document, we can do that to share with future agencies that are starting to collect. So this document is ever growing. Please feel free to be in contact with us if there's something that you're not really sure what category it goes into. To talk about the waste category here, I think this is kind of a common one that agencies aren't quite sure what falls into this category. We're here to do some clarifications on that today. So the food that goes into the waste category is food that was indistributable at the time of donation. So this is any food that you didn't catch at the store and made it back to your facility, but is actually not safe to distribute at the time of sorting. We want to separate this out and weigh it into the waste category. One thing I want to note, sometimes waste is found after it has already been weighed into its other category. We want to be sure that we're not double counting when we consider the waste category. So if something has been weighed into the dairy category, for example, and then you find out that expiration date is a little too far gone, we're not going to be able to distribute it, be sure that you subtract it from the dairy category before adding it to the waste category. We just want to ensure that the total weight of the donation stays the same, whether something ends up in the waste category or not. And anything, just to clarify, anything that comes back to your organization and ends up being not distributable because maybe it's been stored for too long or wasn't handled safely or something like that, it will only go into the waste category if it's not distributed upon the time of donation. I hope that makes sense. Sorry if I sound like a broken record, but just want to be clear. And if there's any questions on that, please drop them in the chat and we'll go into, we'll talk about them at the question and answer time. So moving on to the best buy date guidance that we have. Many people may know this and some people may not. So this is our chance to share. Best buy dates are often not an indication that food is unsafe to consume past that time. So when you're sorting your food and checking best buy dates to be sure that stuff is safe, we have guidance to share with you to know how long after that date something can safely be consumed if it has been handled safely up to that point. The SLO Food Bank uses guidance from the USDA for this. It's called the Food Keeper app. This application is available on their website, the USDA website, which I think Kelly's going to go ahead and drop into the chat. It's also available via an application on your phone. And this is super easy to use. You can search the Food Keeper app by category, or you can search it by a specific item by using the search function. Um, I recommend any agencies that are currently rescuing, any volunteers that are currently rescuing, if you have a phone and you're comfortable using it, I recommend downloading this app. This is, I use it sometimes on site at grocery stores to see if the expiration date is too far gone before we accept a product and load it into the vehicle. Um, so this is where we get our guidance from. We do know, however, that when you're at a grocery store or sometimes when you're sorting at your organization, there's not always access to a computer or access to an app on your phone. So the SLO Food Bank is working on putting this information on a little poster like the one that you see to the right on the slide here. This example that we have here was created for shelf-stable food that comes through in food drives. So our food safety manager is working on creating this document that is going to contain shelf-stable food and then a separate one for perishable food. And this will be available for you to hang up in your pantries to help with guidance if you don't have access to the Food Keeper app. Just be kind of a quick reference guide for you while you're sorting. So you can expect that to be coming down the pipeline sometime this summer. We'll go ahead and send it out to all of our agencies who are rescuing when we have that available for you. And let's move on then to the distribution phase.
Yeah, and I am just want to say that that Food Keeper app that Dre was talking about is really cool, you guys. I've seen her use it and it's pretty cool. So I would highly recommend, as she said, downloading that. So now we're at phase 5 in our grocery rescue process, distribute. And as I said earlier, this is the heart of the good work that you do, where we feed our neighbors, where you distribute the food that you've rescued through your pantries and meal programs. Sometimes we have the amazing problem of having too much rescued food to distribute. And we know that it can happen that there may be excess food left over after your distribution, food that might spoil before your next distribution. And to be clear, under our contract with Feeding America, you're permitted to share excess food you have with other agency partners that you have a relationship with. The SLO Food Bank is also happy to help with that reallocation if you have excess food, so please feel free to reach out. Let us help you in that process. We may know of someone who could really use all those granola bars or bananas or all these eggs that you have. So we can help coordinate that handoff if you've got some excess food after distribution. So yeah, just let us help if we can. Um, Next slide. So the last step in our grocery rescue process is reporting. It's the final phase here. Dre talked about documenting the weights of food that you rescue in an earlier slide. And in these next couple of slides, we want to show you what we do with that information that you submit and also how you can access that information to your benefit. So if you look at this graphic, you can see that the first link in the reporting chain is our agency partners. You submit your documented weights to the SLO Food Bank, and then we utilize that information to meet our own reporting requirements. Biannually, we send that information to County Integrated Waste Management Authority, and they send that on to CalRecycle in order to be in compliance with SB 1383. On a monthly basis, we send the information that you provide to us to Feeding America, which is the umbrella agency over food banks in the US. Feeding America then sends that info on to the corporate headquarters of the local grocery stores that you rescue from. And the headquarters use that information for tax purposes, for its own internal documentation, maybe in order to support sustainability programs that they're doing, for example. And like I said, we send the weights that you submit to Feeding America every month, and we rely heavily on our agency partners to support us in this undertaking. Reporting that doesn't get submitted by the end of the month doesn't get sent to Feeding America. And we see the provision of your food weight information to grocery store headquarters as a way to reciprocate for their donations to our local community. Since it's information that's beneficial to them, it's a way to say thank you for being part of food rescue in our county. An important note in reporting is we want to just point out that agency partners are only required to report weights from stores that the SLO Food Bank is required to report on. So what do we mean by that? Some of you may recall that you used to report all of your food rescue to the SLO Food Bank prior to February 2023. At that time, the food bank began to suspect that reporting could become burdensome and anticipated that the burden would increase with the implementation of SB 1383. So the food bank made the determination to only require agency partners to report weights from large donors. Those are the ones that we are required to report on for Feeding America and SB 1383. You'll know who these large donors are because they're the only ones that are loaded into your account on Primarius. They're the only ones you'll be able to see, the only ones you'll be able to report on. To be clear, we support any donation of food as long as it's done safely and is mutually beneficial. And we don't discourage partnerships with smaller donors, but we don't have contracts with the small donors, and therefore we're not required to report on them. That said, best practice is that agency partners maintain records of all rescue for their own internal documentation. And next slide on reporting, we're calling tips for using reports in Primarius. Primarius is more than just a way to report numbers to the food bank. It can also be a beneficial tool for your agency. Primarius can generate two reports that we want to talk about today that provide your agency access to the information that you've submitted to the SLO Food Bank. You can run an in-process report to double check the weights that you've entered are correct before that information gets processed. I process the information that you submit each Monday through Thursday morning, and I try and catch and make corrections. But if you catch anything while reviewing an in-process report, please notify me right away and I will make the fix. Corrections that are made at this step in process are reflected in confirmed reports, but corrections made after require balancing on the back end and they're not reflected in your confirmed reports. So again, if you spot a correction, let me know right away and I will work with you to get that fixed. So these confirmed reports are the documentation of all the rescue that you've done. And it goes back as far as April 2021. It allows you to create receipts for donors, also to see all the food your agency has rescued, help with applying for grants, compile impact reports, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot it can do. But again, I think the important takeaway is that it allows you access to all that rescue that you've done. So we're going to take a little walk and show you how to run these reports. So I am going to share my screen with you. And hopefully you can see that screen.
Looks
Looking
perfect,
good.
Becky.
Okay, good. And hopefully it looks familiar to you since this should look like the homepage that you're familiar with seeing on Primarius when you log in. So in order to run those reports I was talking about, you're going to just click over here at the top right on reports. And you should see the two reports that I was referring to, the in process and the confirmed reports. You can hover over this helpful description box here and it'll remind you what these reports do and how they can be beneficial for your agency. So the process for running both of these reports is the same. So I'm just going to run one of them, and then you'll know how to run both of them by watching that. So to run the report, you click right here on run. I'm going to run a confirmed report so we can take a look at that. That will bring you to a page here that allows you to set the dates for the time frame that you want the report to run from. So I'm going to pick a date just from a rescue the other day, but it's something too that you can do again. It goes back to April of 2021, so you can run all those numbers. If you want a snapshot of your rescue the past month, you would just click on this calendar, hit the beginning of the month, choose that, hit on your end date, and pick the end of the month, for example. Like I said, we're going to use this date to run our example. So once you have your start date and your end date entered, you just click Run Report here, and Primarius will pull up that report for you. You can see that it sorts your information by date, donor, and category. One of the things that I want to highlight here in this report, the date you'll notice is listed as the pickup date. In order to have the most accurate statistics in Primarius and for your reports, we want you to use the date that the donation was picked up when you enter your weight information into Primarius, and not the date that you're sitting down and actually entering it into Primarius. So again, this pickup date is the date that you'll use for all your entries, the day you actually went and physically picked up the donation of the food that you're reporting on. You can see this gives category totals and your overall total. The last thing I want to show you that's pretty cool is that you can export this document as a PDF or an Excel document, and do that just by choosing one or the other here and hitting export. So again, if you're not already running these reports, I hope this will make you interested in doing so, see what it can do for your agency. And if you want to learn more or you need any help in running these reports, just reach out and let me know. And let's see if Stop Sharon should take it back over to Dre.
Perfect. Thank you for that
Awesome.
tutorial on reporting. I'm going to get back to the slideshow here and resume where we left off. Okay, so next, the big slide here, 1383. Excited to have a captive audience here to talk about 1383. I know we have been talking about it, and you've probably heard it dropped here and there. And this is a great time to kind of get into details of what it means. So the title for 1383 is California's Short-Lived Climate Pollutant Reduction Strategy. In a nutshell, what that means is California made some legislation to start diverting organic waste from the landfill. When organic waste is in the landfill decomposing, it actually emits methane and other greenhouse gases, which are bad for the environment. So the idea behind this bill is to divert that organic waste and have it used in other ways outside of the landfill. There are quite a few different aspects to 1383, but the one that we are interested in is the edible food recovery. So edible food recovery has become mandated for the donors who generate edible food in California. Let me go into a couple of the terms to define so that we're all sort of on the same page with the lexicon as we talk about this. Food recovery organizations, also known as FROs. Those are organizations involved in food rescue efforts, such as yourself, our agency partners, often nonprofits. So under 1383, agency partners are known as food recovery organizations. The next one, commercial edible food generators. I also refer to these as generators often. Those are the donors of the edible food, like grocery stores or school cafeterias, for example. So 1383 is being rolled out in 2 different tiers on a timeline. So you'll hear about tier 1 generators. Those are, they were, they were mandated to start donating in 2022. This includes supermarkets, grocery stores, and food service providers. There are a couple other types of donors on that list. This is sort of the broad strokes for you, but basically the tier one generators encompass generators that have food that's already packaged and sort of easy to transport for donation. Tier 2 generators are coming down the pipeline in 2024. That is when they will be mandated to start donating by the state of California. And Tier 2 includes restaurants, hotels, education facilities, health facilities. Again, there's a couple more on that list, but these are the basics. And to give you an idea, not every restaurant or hotel is going to be mandated to start donating. There's actually thresholds that were determined to decide under this threshold. There's not requirements for donation. So to give you an example, restaurants that are required to donate are ones that are 5,000 or plus or more square feet, or restaurants that have over 250 seats on the premises. So there actually aren't any restaurants in SLO County that fit this description. So none of the restaurants in SLO County are going to be required to donate under 1383. Just to give you an example, because I know when you're looking at this, you're probably thinking, okay, all the restaurants are going to start donating. We have a mountain of food coming our way. It's not going to be that intense because there are thresholds for each one of these categories under which donations are not mandatory. And while we're here, I also wanted to talk about contracts with 1383. So contracts are the mechanism through which generators show that they are in compliance with the laws of 1383. So by having a food rescue contract in place, they're able to show the partnerships that they have with our with food recovery organizations to donate food. And I want to be clear, these food rescue contracts are not, agency partners are not obligated to sign these food rescue contracts. The SLO Food Bank is the responsible party that signs food rescue contracts on behalf of agency partners with the donors that we work with. And the reason for that is first of all, these contracts can get very complicated, and we don't expect our volunteers to have to sit down and start to learn how to interpret contracts as part of what they do. And often these contracts have details that are included about obligations for reporting to jurisdictions for 1383. Because the SLO Food Bank is actually the responsible entity for reporting on behalf of our agency partners, we are the responsible party for signing the food rescue contract as well. So if any donors reach out to an agency partner who is rescuing and ask them to sign a food rescue contract, please advise them to reach out to me at the SLO Food Bank, and we're happy to negotiate and maintain that contract on behalf of our agency partners. One thing I also wanted to make clear, for food recovery organizations under 1383 are not required to collect donations. However, the generators are required to start donating at the date as mentioned above. So what that means is us as food recovery organizations, we are able to reject any donations that are above our capacity to distribute, anything that doesn't fall under our nutrition guidelines, or any food that is inedible or spoiled in any way. You are not required to collect everything that comes your way. However, for the relationships that you do have and to collect, you are required, if you're collecting, to report on that collection. So again, the generators are required to start donating. The food recovery organizations are not required to collect, but if you are collecting, you're required to report. I hope that's clear. There's a lot more details about 1383. Like I said, we just kind of went into the broad strokes here. I think, Kelly, if you wouldn't mind putting a link to the CalRecycle website, I think that'd be a great time to do that. There are more details available there if you care to learn more. And if you have questions that we don't get a chance to get to today, I'm happy to answer anything. Reach out to me individually and we can clarify anything that isn't currently clear to you. And we're getting to the end of our presentation here. I wanted to say that food rescue is an essential part of our hunger relief network, and this is a supportive network that we're all a part of. So by growing our food rescue team and network with more agencies prepared to rescue, we're better equipped to distribute food quickly and safely throughout the community. So for that reason, we encourage any agencies that are interested in beginning food rescue to reach out to us so that we can begin the phases of preparation. Food rescue opportunities are a little bit unpredictable. We know we have more coming our way with the tier 2 coming down in 2024, but we can't control how much is donated to us and the frequency of donations. All we can do is really be prepared when donations come our way. So we recommend reaching out to us to get that capacity visit started so we can get you prepared. And then when opportunities become available, those will be shared via email from Becky. I think that covers all of what we wanted to today. I also wanted to share, I know there's a lot of information that we shared on these slides today, and this will all also be coming out in the next version of the Agency Partner Policy and Procedures Handbook. So if you want to read more on anything or want to reference anything in the future, you can always look at the food rescue section that will be new in the next Agency Partner Handbook. And with that, I think we're going to open it up to questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dre. And as we mentioned before, if you have any questions, please add them to the chat. Since we're now at the end, if you have anything that comes to your mind right now, feel free to use that little raise your hand icon towards the top of your page. It should just look like a hand like that. And then I'm also going to go back to a question that Kelly actually beautifully answered in the chat, just to give an opportunity to any of our friends that are on the phone that might not be able to see the chat as well. So Dre from Janine, she would like to know if the food or which store the food comes from is a required part of the reporting that they submit.
Yeah, so when our agency partners submit reporting, they actually do it through the specific donor that they picked the food up from. And the reason for that is when we report back to Feeding America, we do it underneath those donor accounts so that the donors that share the food with us are able to get credit for the donations that they share with the community. So yeah, that is part of the information that comes through on the reports is they are separated by the donor that they came from. Does that answer the question?
And feel free to unmute yourself as well, Janine. Okay.
If it's useful too, I mean, I can show you here on Primaries kind of what that screen that Dre's talking about looks like. But, so Ginny, just let us know if that would be helpful or not.
Yeah. Let's see. And she just added another question that was kind of related to that one. Is the grocery store going to expect us to report what we pick up? And I believe, yeah.
We do not have to report directly back to the grocery stores. The SLO Food Bank reports that information to Feeding America, and Feeding America reports that back to the corporate entities of the stores that we have partnerships with. So that's how the reporting chain works. The food bank doesn't actually report back to the donors. And definitely our agency partners don't have to report back to the donors. The agency partners report to the food bank, which goes to Feeding America and back to the corporate entities.
And then another question. Oh, this is a great one. Can you help figure out which scales are best to use for weighing out donations?
Yeah, so we have a scale that we use at the food bank, and it has kind of like an external unit that says the weight. So it's a little different than like a bathroom scale that we're used to. Those have the capacity of 460 pounds, I want to say. There is a specific scale that we use and we recommend that our agency partners use. I want to say the cost for that is around $150 or $175. I've seen agency partners use something like a bathroom scale if necessary. And sometimes that entails a person standing on the scale and then holding the rescue and subtracting their own weight. So we kind of make do with what we have if we need to, but there is certainly a scale that we recommend using that we use at the food bank, and it's available on Amazon. I don't know if I don't have the link to it right now, but we can certainly share that information in the follow-up email that we send out.
And I'm assuming that would be a new bathroom scale, correct?
Of course.
And another related question, is the food bank able to supply scales?
So that is dependent on the grants that are available and the funding that's available at the time. So when we go to do a food, or excuse me, when we go to do a rescue capacity visit, that's the time we can kind of determine what equipment is going to be needed to start rescue. And if there is funding available at that time, we will definitely talk about it. As a nonprofit, and probably a lot of our agency partners know, we do depend on grant funding and donations to fuel our mission. So it's not always available to us, but when it is, we're happy to talk about that with our agencies.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dre. And then this one I'm actually going to direct to Kelly. I'm assuming this is from the perspective of maybe not an agency partner, but possibly another community group. Would they be subject to scrutiny and or inspection by the food bank if they agreed to become a food rescue partner?
Yes, thank you. And I just have to say real quick, I love Dre's thinking about how to weigh rescues at home and holding and then subtracting your weight, because that is how I weigh my rather overweight lovable cat at home, and it is a fun time, let me tell you. But yes, this question about if you become a participating rescue partner, so you're picking up food from grocery stores, are you going to be under the scrutiny or inspection of the food bank, the SLO Food Bank? Um, Kind of a complicated question, but I think ultimately the answer there is that our current grocery rescue partners are all registered agency partners, and agency partnership with the SLO Food Bank does come with, guidelines that are outlined in our handbook, policy and procedure handbook, which is available online for anyone to view, not only agency partners. So we do hold agency partners to the same standards, such as, twice every 2 years, we visit agency partners to reconnect in person, learn about your programs, make sure that fridges and freezers are at the correct temperature, food is being distributed equitably to all participants, and that food is being distributed safely. And we do try to be very upfront with kind of what those outlines are. So that's why they're available online. Additionally, if you were someone rescuing food and you're not under an agency partner, not a volunteer of an agency partner, or you're a community member coming to the SLO Food Bank with food rescued from a grocery store, um, every agency partner or facility that might accept donated food, even if they're a pantry that's not affiliated with the SLO Food Bank, they will, have their own guidelines and rules and expectations for accepting donations. The SLO Food Bank, for our agency partners, we do hold our agency partners to the same food safety standards and requirements that we hold ourselves to as well. And we try to keep those very consistent. And then for organizations that are outside this umbrella of agency partner or their SLO Food Bank, they may have their own eligibility requirements, but we will not be inspecting those facilities. And I feel like the last piece I had there is, if you're bringing food rescued from a grocery store or a farmer's market, either to the SLO Food Bank or an agency partner, again, that's kind of the final step where there will probably be a visual inspection to look over some of the food safety items, see if they're still cold enough, if they need to be refrigerated or frozen, checking expiration dates with our Best Buy guidance and things like that. So I hope that answers your question, Janine, and happy to elaborate too if need be. And then I think, Susie, did we get, I'm not sure we covered this. It's another reporting question, another good one. So for the grocery stores, are the grocery stores expecting or wanting the rescue partners to report numbers? So for example, is Trader Joe's expecting an agency partner or expecting someone picking up food to be reporting these numbers either to the SLO Food Bank, somehow to Feeding America or the corporate headquarters?
Yeah, I can answer the beginning of that and then I'll let Dre follow up. But agency partners are only required to report for those large donors to the SLO Food Bank. So that information they're not required to send that anywhere else to anyone else, just to the SLO Food Bank. And again, that's only for those large donors that we're required to report on. I know there's probably a little bit more information on that, Dre, that you could probably add.
I think the only clarifying point is that our agency partners will not be required to report back to the stores. They're only required to report to the food bank. For stores that have a partnership with Feeding America, that information does get back to their corporate headquarters through Feeding America. But we are not responsible for reporting back to the stores that information.
Thank you, Dre. And I might add another question just because I know it comes up quite a bit. What happens when maybe a store isn't receiving reporting for the rescues that they know that they are donating to different nonprofits in the area?
Are you saying like through Feeding America, they're not seeing the numbers that they know they've sent?
Yeah.
Sure. So if we have reports that are received after the 4th of the month deadline that we communicate with our agency partners, then those reports aren't going to make it into the Feeding America report that goes out to eventually ends up at the donors. So if a donor reaches out to us because they think that the numbers that they're receiving are lower than what they're actually donating, we have to go back and see, is this because somehow we're not getting reporting, or, kind of find out where the link in that chain is. And unfortunately, if we have an agency partner that is sort of habitually unable to report by that deadline at the end of a month, we do have to let our grocery partners know that they do have the option of partnering with an agency partner in better standing, and ultimately with reporting. And ultimately, it's up to the grocery stores. But that is sort of like the path that they have to take if they're seeing that their reporting isn't coming through.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Oh, yes,
Oh, does
Kelly.
Kelly have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I remember when you were talking about if an agency partners at a store that they're rescuing from, there might be an instance where after they load the food into the transportation vehicle and head back to the distribution site, they might find food that was donated from the grocery store that actually is inedible. I was just kind of wondering if you might provide an example of something an agency partner might see to help make it a little more concrete, because I know that's a tricky situation. So maybe it's they got, 6 cases of milk and checked a couple best by dates, which were good, but then it turns out the crate on the bottom had some expired milk. Would that be an example of something that should be marked as waste from the grocery store once back at their pantry?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be something that falls under the category of inedible or not distributable at the time of donation.
Mhm.
And that would be entered into the waste category. And just taking care to not also enter that into the dairy category if it was something that was dairy. Yeah, so directly to the waste category that goes before disposal.
And then I had one last question for maybe our agency partners who aren't currently participating or who are. Just kind of curious because, there is, a bit of work involved for agency partners, which we truly appreciate. But what are some of the great benefits of agency partners participating in food rescue that we might just want to highlight as a bow on top of this lovely webinar?
Yeah, I think one of the best things about grocery rescue is that it adds that variety of food to the food that you're already, like, on top of the food that you're already able to receive through the SLO Food Bank. You will get a much better variety through food rescue. I think another very obvious benefit of it is that rescue is free.
More free food.
So free to you. And that obviously makes it very appealing too. So I would say that variety and the fact that it's a donation is very beneficial for our agency partners. I think another thing when we consider the sort of the bigger picture is that rescued food is food that would have otherwise gone to the landfill and been harmful to the environment. So not only are you helping the environment with that action, but you're redistributing back to the community where it's needed. So it's really a triple win there for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
I think those are the benefits as I see them.
Some big ones. Thank you so much, Dre.
Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
I'm Pastor Gerald Purified. The question was this: let's say you're part of you're part of the crew that picks up food,
Hmm.
but go on vacation. What happens then?
Yeah. So if you have regularly scheduled pickups and for some reason you'll be unable to do those pickups, we just ask you to reach out to us, Becky or myself, and we're happy to do work the process of looking for another another agency partner that can sub in for those pickups. It's also possible that food could be collected by the food bank and distributed through us. So we are very interested in being sure that our donors can expect regularly scheduled pickups. If there's anything that you're not able to make, please do reach out to us. If we're not able to find another agency to pick it up that one time, we will be in contact with the donor just to let them know that that's going to happen and talk with them about the next steps for them to do with their donation. Thank you for asking. That's a really good question.
I think that also speaks to, I think Janine was saying that her next question was kind of answered by the benefits of agencies participating in food rescue. But just to note that, on the SLO Food Bank, we do really try to recognize that, while some agency partners may have paid staff, others are entirely volunteer ran. And not only that, but like the most dedicated volunteers. So we do try to be mindful and try to set up, our policies for reporting, our ordering, even on the agency partner side, our process for ordering food, we do try to make that as easy as possible. And that's why along the way, if you're participating in it and experiencing difficulties, we are really open to that feedback because that helps inform us how we can improve it, how we can make it easier for agency partners, how we can make it less confusing. And then in general, how we can work on our messaging to the general public about what we do, and really have that be an accurate picture of what we're doing. So just again, really great point, Janine. Thank you. And we do try to recognize that and welcome feedback, questions, and comments.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all for attending today. We're a little bit over time, and so I'm really grateful that you guys decided to go into the next hour a little bit with us. If you have any other additional questions, please reach out to either Dre or Becky. Their contact information and emails are on the screen. Or for other inquiries, you're absolutely allowed to use foodrescue@slofoodbank.org. And both of them oftentimes will look at that email pretty regularly to make sure that they're not missing anything with that. So with that, thank you all. I know additional information on the next webinar and that topic will be coming out shortly. And with that, thank you all again. Have a great Thursday.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.